So sometimes when we start the podcast, we talk about movie reviews.
We do?
Yes, because
Why?
sometimes we like to watch classics, as one of our children like to say, and so occasionally we go like to the deep like records of like the 80s and like watch a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And one time we started the podcast talking about how much you hated Goonies.
Ugh.
Because of like how much screaming and yelling, and the kids were just like, because you'd never seen it, right? It was like a classic that you'd never seen.
Yeah, as a kid, I have no nostalgia with it.
And last night we had a situation that was flipped, where it was a movie that you had some nostalgia with, and it was something that I had never seen before.
I didn't realize you hadn't seen it. I mean, we had talked about it a lot with Bristol, but
Yeah.
I didn't realize you hadn't seen it.
And I like, when I say seen it, maybe I can say like I had a relationship to it. It had some memory for me. I feel like at some point I remember something about the flying dog, but I don't remember ever liking the movie. I don't remember like a connection with it at all. So I might have seen it, but like last night it was like seeing it like for the first time, like, oh my gosh. And so, yeah, I want to know, what were your thoughts about watching the Never Ending Story last night?
Okay, so back in the 90s, you had to catch movies on TV. You had to like look at the schedule and schedule out, and you had to catch shows or catch movies. So it's really interesting that our children today will never watch just part of a movie and try to guess what happened at the beginning. And that whole beginning part, I have no idea. I think I came in, whenever I would watch that movie, I would come at the part where he has the book already.
Okay.
And he steals it or whatever and goes into the attic.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the Never Ending Story, by the way.
And I mentioned this.
Okay. You
yeah, I did. But so we're watching it last night, and it blew my mind. I was like, oh
it's
my
so
gosh,
deep.
So freaking deep.
I had it's like the original Inside Out.
It's
talking about emotions
Yeah.
and grief and sadness and despair.
Right.
Like so interesting. And
so
death.
So starting like the first thing that I felt like I saw in the movie was the portrayal of the dad being an absolute asshole. Like the son's grieving, and just like this really interesting picture of masculinity of dad just being like, all right, son, you got to be
As
serious.
He eats his egg.
Yeah, drinking his egg. It's like orange juice.
OJ.
So like an orange Julius or something. It's so weird.
I think that would be an orange Julius.
Yeah.
Weird.
And so, and then
product placement.
Exactly. And then the boy is sitting there like, and he's like making a sandwich for the day. And the dad's like, all right, son, we got to talk. And he unloads on him. He's like, your mother's died. I understand. It's pretty hard, but you got to suck it up and be a man.
Yeah.
And then I talked to your teacher, and she said you weren't doing this.
You weren't doing math.
Totally. You're not doing your math. And then he like just lays it on him. And the kid
kept going, too.
He did.
And the kid just looked like a kicked puppy.
It was like beating me down, like dad beating energy. Really weird. And then he's like, all right, dad, I'll do better, basically, right? So then he goes on and he gets bullied, and I'm sure everyone else has seen the movie. I don't need to go through the entire storyline. But it was so fascinating to then see, like once he gets into the world of the book, so he's like working out his entire life through the story of the book. So I'm curious, like seeing it now, like what stood out to you? Like what were some of the depth or lessons that you maybe saw for the first time?
Well, I think he was actually working out more the emotions around his mother's, like understanding death.
Yeah.
He was understanding that we are mortal and that we're going to die.
Yep.
And working out all of the emotions that he had. And it's so interesting how children learn through story. Children learn through play. And that's why you don't do therapy with children. You do play therapy.
Right.
Right. So it was diving into this child imagination of how his nervous system had no idea how to process this, and how this story it was story representation of his emotions and his journey with his emotions and understanding this new concept of death.
Yeah. And like he goes through the whole thing and the horse dies and everything gets shed right along. It's like the hero's journey effectively.
It's totally the hero's journey.
And everything is getting shed as it goes along the way. And even to the point where he has to shed himself, right? So to get through the first gate, you had to have no self-worth, which to me is like, I mean, you have the ultimate, like, I'm willing to sacrifice for someone. Like others,
you had to have self-worth. It was testing your self-worth.
Right. And I thought he said you had to not have self-worth.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because it was about humility. All these knights thought they could come in. And
I think they were seeing like the ego and trying to hide the little boy that doesn't have self-worth.
Exactly.
So
but I think he got through because he was doing it to save Fantasia, not for his own glory to get to whatever. At least that's how I interpreted it. I could have misheard that. But anyways, he's just shedding himself, right? Death after death after death as it goes. And then to the ultimate death of the Fantasia world dying and his hero. So at the very end, the hero dies, only to be integrated into realizing he's the hero of his own story.
Yeah, so good.
Right? And then he gets to go and
I love is it called Valkmore? Or?
Yeah, Valkor.
So Valkor, the flying dog.
Yeah,
who looks exactly like my mother's dog.
That's creepy.
It was really creepy. So, how he comes in and he represents hope.
Yeah. No, luck.
Luck. Well, I think it's hope.
Well, exactly. But I love that he's the lucky dog. And I love, again, that they played with these things. Like they didn't go super deep of saying he was the dog of hope, which I feel like today, if there was a version of this, it would be all like, the
dog of hope.
Yes. And it would be it's so interesting because everything was so subtle. And I feel like today, stuff like that kind of slaps you across the face, right? It's like Inside Out, sadness, joy, like the actual expressions of those. We can go to that depth. This is, to me, I think, so much more meaningful on some levels because you have to work to understand this story. Even though they're telling you at the end, he's saying it all. It's not like it's a secret, but it's whether or not you can understand. And I think a lot of kids don't.
Exactly. That's actually what I was just thinking as you were talking. The way that my memory of that story, I loved it for so many reasons, right? Mm-hmm. And I know that my higher self, my spirit and soul understood the meaning that I now understand in this present moment after watching it. So it's like the intuition of a child to love something that is deep and that is that story of. I never thought of it in that way. It was so interesting to watch something over. It's been really, really fun watching all these movies again.
Yeah.
And remembering why I loved ones and didn't love others. But
Totally.
Like new set of eyes.
It is. And it's interesting to see like how these things have shaped us. But anyways, this one didn't shape me.
The way that they did movies in the 90s was...
Oh, totally. So cheesy.
But also it can be really raw. Like there was some intense parts.
I mean, the horse drowning.
Yeah, I was like,
no CGI in that shit.
They could kill a horse. Like in today's like worlds, they would never kill a horse.
Right.
Like you can't kill a horse. I was literally thinking that.
I wonder how they shot that. What do you think they did? How do you lower a horse like that? Because there was one scene where its eyes were like nervous. You could tell that it was an uncomfortable situation for the horse as the water was coming up on it. But I wonder if they like had him on a platform and the platform sunk down and like his whole body. But anyway, sorry. That's a random thought of like, how did they actually, because now anything like that would be freaking CGI.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even be a real freaking horse.
Yeah.
So anyways, thank God for Yellowstone. Those are some real horses. Those guys are riding. Real horses.
I just love that you liked Yellowstone as well.
Oh my gosh.
One of my favorite things. Like,
that was great. I think they're doing a season 6. There's more of that.
Yeah,
Yellowstone and Succession. We watched those things back to back.
Yeah.
Succession is getting ready to come back around.
But I mean, I love that Yellowstone's about like guns and cowboys, and that's totally not you. but you still find a way to really enjoy it.
I did. It was me stepping into my masculinity. Like, yeah, I can get down on some dudes fighting. That'll be cool. Horses and shit. So, anyways, never ending story.
Never ending story.
I totally slurred that. Speaking of slurred, never ending story.
What is the never ending story of life?
The cycle of death and rebirth.
Yeah.
That's the never ending story. This thing will.
And that is life.
It is.
Yeah.
It is the never ending story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to dive into our topic tonight because I was reading an article and I realized that this is something that we haven't really gone very in depth into, and definitely one of the, I think, more important things, the lessons that I've learned in my life. So another secret, if you will, about my experience. So this was in CNN, which I know, like, whatever, but CNN Health. And this was interesting because it was a headline this morning, was not a headline this evening. So when they kind of place these things, it's interesting. But anyways, it says, a beer, a glass of wine, or cocktail may feel so commonplace that you don't even think about pouring another. But a new study suggests that it may be important for everyone to be mindful of their alcohol use. An estimated 1 in 5 deaths of people ages 20 to 49 were attributed to excessive alcohol use in the United States, according to the study published Tuesday in JAMA Network Open. For people ages 20 to 64, drinking-related deaths accounted for 1 in 8, the study said. The percentages of deaths attributed to alcohol use varied state by state, but nationally, it's the leading cause of preventable death, said the study author, Marissa Esser, who leads, maybe that's a typo, who leads the U.S. Centers for Disease and Control and Prevention Alcohol Program. And we'll cite this in the show notes so people can go read the rest of the article if they want. That started getting me thinking about, wow, 1 in 5 deaths.
I wonder what they considered, like what were their criteria to consider something alcohol related?
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? I'm sure there's ways where you like poke holes and whatnot. But
I'm not trying to poke holes. I'm just curious.
Yeah. Like what
did
type
they consider an alcohol related death?
Right.
Right.
Is it over time?
Yeah.
Is
like
it
cirrhosis of the liver.
Right.
Alcohol related death.
Right. Or is it like a drunk driving accident? Would that be related to alcohol?
I'm guessing, yeah.
I would assume so as well. So,
or alcohol poisoning, or
yeah, but it's still a lot on
it's
some levels. They says the leading preventable cause of death in the United States is reducing alcohol.
That's also a keyword. Like, what do they consider preventable?
Deaths.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Accidents.
Right.
Or, I mean, I think most diseases are preventable, but I don't know if they're. I don't know.
Well, come on, again, it's CNN, so
I don't know if they're saying that.
Yeah, I was going to say death related to obesity is a preventable death, right?
Yeah, that's the number one cause of.
Or heart attacks is
preventable death.
Right. There's going to always be the weird
But then
ones.
the obesity leads to, heart disease and some cancers.
Yeah. So, anyways, but alcohol. I want to talk about it.
Okay.
Because 3 years ago, I decided to go alcohol free, and over the last 3 years have been alcohol free, and it's been a pretty interesting journey. And I realized we were at a party on Saturday, and somebody asked me about it as I was dressed up as Jesus, so that was ironic. And it was that because everyone was drinking, and
Jesus
I just
turned water into wine, didn't drink the wine. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe he did.
I think that Jesus drank the wine. This Jesus wasn't. So, so I was just there with my water bottle or whatever, and I think they were doing Jello shots or something, and I passed, and he was like, "Oh, so you don't drink?" And that's always the question, right? The when anyone stops drinking, it's the thing that you're like, "Damn it!" Like whenever I'm out, people are always going to ask. And then there's all these stigmas, and they're going to think I was an alcoholic. And that's one of the main reasons, and I think one of the main fears for why people don't stop drinking alcohol, because of the social pressure to drink. I think it's one of the main ones. I don't know, there's lots of reasons, but anyway, so I wanted to be able to dive into that story tonight. of that decision and how I got there.
What did you tell him?
I mean, I basically told him my story. I was like, I'm alcohol free. Like, I haven't had a drink in about 3 years or over 3 years. And that it's been something that's just really served me well. And then what was interesting is then he was like, he wanted to engage a conversation. Mm-hmm. So we ended up talking for like the next, 5-10 minutes about it. And it was really interesting what people will begin to tell you. And I won't share his story because that's his, but what people share. It's interesting.
I think it's similar to food, where there's such an emotional attachment or component, good or bad, can be the entire spectrum, right? And food carries that similar energy with us. So I think that's an interesting thing.
Yeah. Food and drink, right? I mean, it's what we shape so much of our lives around, and it's so much of a social thing. And when you stop, you realize how like so much of the gathering of adults is based around drinking.
Yeah. So what is your earliest memory of how you related to alcohol or learned about alcohol?
So I didn't have much of a connection through high school. I had zero desire. It wasn't in the house. My parents didn't drink. I think maybe towards my middle school, high school years, they started drinking like water cooler I think it was called like a water cooler. Mm-hmm. Is that what they were called? Mm-hmm. They were like
Zimas or whatever.
Yeah, they're like super fruity, and I think they're called BJs, BJ water coolers. That's what I remember in my mind for some reason. And so I remember, they had their shows they would watch at night. That was their ritual, and because they would record them. So with the VCR, my dad would record the show, and then they could watch it later after That
was the best invention ever, because then you didn't miss shit.
Exactly,
like you didn't miss anything.
So I remember them doing that, and then they would microwave a bag of popcorn, and I would smell that, and I would could come out on the ledge and look down, and I could see them drinking. That was the earliest memory that I have of just alcohol being around.
How old were you?
Like I said, I don't know. That might have been more like 12 or 13. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, but it was pretty rare. It wasn't very often that I saw them drinking. And then through high school, it was never in my group. No one I knew drank. I was such a good church kid. I'd never been to a party where alcohol, kids were drinking. The only time I'd seen some drunk people was by the time I was a senior in high school, I was going to concerts. So I was kind of seeing drunk people there. But my parents didn't have friends that drank. I had zero exposure to people drinking because it wasn't a thing. When my parents gathered, it was with the Bible study, and you don't drink with church people. And so, it was
until beer became acceptable.
Oh, totally. With the microbrewing,
totally. So cool.
It became cigars. And that's what I grew up in. So it's interesting because I remember. So the first time I had a drink was I went to England for Bible school, and at 18 it was legal. And so that was kind of the thing. It was it's legal here. Can I drink? And once you got to Bible school, you had to sign something.
I'm sure you guys had a whole conversation about, it's not legal, but it is but you still have to. Did you guys have a whole conversation about drinking in Bible school?
So the Bible school, you had to sign saying something you wouldn't drink.
Oh,
that was your commitment that you wouldn't drink while you were at Bible school.
I remember that.
So
did you guys have those commitments in high school too, where you had to sign
not that I remember.
What do you call it? What's the word?
I don't know.
Being, I can't think of the word. Being good, not an integrity commitment, but some kind of character, a character clause.
A character clause. No.
So we had to sign something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. In high school.
I don't remember signing, but I remember the rules. We had these were the expectations, and you would be in big trouble if you broke these rules.
Yeah.
Just is so interesting. So it is. Yeah. I didn't have a drink until I got to England, and I tried a beer, didn't like it. I tried cider, and it was okay. But I just didn't really have much desire to drink at all. And then while I was there, though, I remember one time by the time I like found a group of guys that were older, like in their 20s, they would go out and they would like kind of break the rule and like grab a drink, right? And I was like, oh, this is so bad. Like, and I remember like one time getting like a cider, and I was like, it's apple cider with a little bit of alcohol, and I didn't really feel much of a buzz, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't really know what that was like. Then the first time I got drunk was traveling. So during that year, we went to Spain. And I was a group of house of all these Bible school kids, and we were going to drink. Like everybody's like, let's go. And I'd never been around, like these are all college students. Most of them were over 21.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like this lowly little like 19-year-old. And so I was like, great, yeah. And I bought like a rum cooler. It's like, I'll have that. And then like, so I got 2 rum coolers because I didn't like beer. And then they did something like, I think it was Red Bull and vodka, Red Bull and something.
Ooh.
And so we go back and we're watching a movie, we're eating pizza, and I just start drinking. And like, I'm not paying attention. I don't know what I'm doing. Nothing. I'm just pounding. It's the first time I've like ever really drunk. And I got so wasted. Like the room was spinning. I think I ended up in the bathroom puking. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, it was not fun at all. It was so disorienting. And then I remember like passing out, and like all the older people were like feeling really bad because I got all us young kids drunk. I remember this other girl got drunk with me. Totally. And she got super drunk with me too. And like, we were like, the next morning, it was like this element of guilt. Like, oh, we got too drunk last night. What just happened? I remember she was like really distraught about like getting drunk. And I was like, was I really drunk? Like, I don't know. Like it was weird. And that was it. I didn't really drink again. Like I traveled Europe a second time and I kind of drank with my buddies. But again, I would drink like a rum cooler.
Can I just say
Yes.
that how you do anything is how you do everything. So you had tried alcohol a while before, right? You had.
What do you mean?
Like
Like this was within a year.
Within a year, but
Yeah.
it was you didn't drink a ton.
No.
This was like a special trip later on, right?
Yes.
So I love how the first time you drink, you don't really like it, but you try it, or you try a cider, or you try something else, right? You try it. The first time I ever drank, it was literally like beer bongs.
Totally.
I was just thinking that's a funny contrast.
It is.
I mean, it was at a party, beer bongs.
And you like downed a bear?
In a beer bong.
Like you just like, I don't think I've
Like
ever had a beer bong.
Kegger, let's see. It was like a sport
Wow.
to me.
Do you even taste it with the beer bong? I've never done one.
It's not, I mean, it's just cold and all the bubbles kind of burn your throat, but it feels.
So it's like a really light beer, I'm assuming?
Well, of course. You get the cheapest beer ever.
Okay.
And you swallow it. It's not to taste it. It's to get drunk.
See.
And to like show off and be funny.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Gosh, that is so true.
At a hockey player's house. How
old were
with
you?
the volleyball team. I was 19.
19.
Yeah, I was sophomore. I didn't drink my whole freshman year of college.
Okay.
But I tried it my sophomore year.
You were like, and what was that decision? Why were you like, all right, I'm in?
Oh, it's the first year I was a little bit of an outcast, but in the second year I felt more like camaraderie with my team and my teammates. So it was more of, it was more FOMO. I didn't want to miss out. They were all doing this. Like, I can do this now.
Huh. What gave yourself? Why did you you could give yourself permission to do it because you were kind of part of the inside group?
They wore me down.
Yeah.
Over the last year.
Like some peer pressure. They're like, come
peer
on.
Pressure.
So did you drink it all in high school?
No.
You followed the rules, the character clause.
But it was never around either.
Okay. So you kind of grew up in the same situation.
We were same. I mean, so much of our situation growing up is similar. So this is one reason why I love and appreciate you, especially it was so easy getting to know you because so much of our experiences growing up are so similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you found out years later that some of my friends used to like smoke weed before they played basketball games. I'm like, you guys never told me. They told me years later.
Right. It was probably because you were like the good kid.
I was the
Yeah. We were both the good kid, basically.
I was the kid in high school who flushed my cousin's weed down the toilet.
Yeah.
On vacation.
Oh my gosh. I've heard this story.
They still give me so much shit about it.
Yeah. So
probably the worst thing I've ever done to my cousins.
It's interesting. We're both 19 when we get drunk for the first time.
Yeah.
So for me, I come back from England and I don't touch it. It's against the law. And so I just like hold this line where I'm like, nope, I don't want to drink. I'm not going to do this. Like, I want to follow the rules, even though like a part of me was like, oh, I'd love to church, like begin drinking beer. And I remember like my roommate turned 21 before I did. And I was dating my ex at this point. And there was this like, these rules that I followed because of like what she was asking of me, like to not drink. Like I would be a bad kid. I would be dishonoring. I would be a bad Christian if I drank before my 21st birthday. And so I remember feeling like really guilty. Like I think I did it maybe once. I grabbed a beer from him and like drank it, and I didn't really like it, but I was like, okay. I don't remember the time, but I remember just like within 6 months of my 21st birthday, I started flirting with the line of like not drinking. What about, I mean, obviously you didn't. So at 19, you get drunk. What does your relationship with alcohol begin to look like until you turn 21?
So we had a rule during season. You couldn't drink within 48. It was called the 48-hour rule.
Okay.
So it was 48 hours before a practice or a game.
Okay.
So Saturday night, we all got wasted.
So just every Saturday night?
Every Saturday night, there was some kind of party.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, I missed out on so much.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But I mean, my sophomore year, it wasn't that much, but I turned 21 my junior year. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you turn 21, and is it just like party central? What is your relationship to?
Deep 7. I mean.
Yeah. So tell me about like, what is that like? Partying every weekend, getting blackout drunk consistently.
So
like,
actually, for me, my body does not like it very much. So I would puke before I would get blackout drunk.
Okay.
I haven't gotten completely blackout very often in my life.
Yeah.
Blackout where I forget details. You've even seen that with me where
Well, yeah.
I'm like, do we have sex last night? You're like, what? I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I remember now.
There was consent.
So sometimes I'm tired and I don't remember details. Yeah. It's that kind of thing. But that's kind of I've never been really drunk with you. It's more buzzed.
Yeah.
So blackout drunk, not very often. I puke before that. So
okay.
Yeah. And definitely not walking. I'm definitely still walking.
Okay.
Maybe not well.
Right. So is this like an every weekend kind of thing? Did you take breaks? Like what did that look like for you?
I honestly
don't remember.
Yeah, that's not on the hard drive, babe.
Okay. That's interesting.
I did love dancing.
Yeah.
So I loved getting drunk and dancing somehow at a house party or going to a place where there was music and
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So I turned 21 and I don't even get drunk on my 21st birthday. Like not majorly drunk. I was like maybe buzzed, but like not drunk.
And again, I was in a bikini contest on my 21st birthday.
Exactly.
In Florida.
No, when I turned 21, like at midnight, one of my roommates took me to the Monkey Swing. It was like a bar at like 12:15 to get my first drink. That was his birthday present to me.
I remember when they outlawed that. You couldn't do it the night before. The power hour.
The
power hour.
I guess maybe that's what I was
People
doing.
People are dying.
Seriously?
Doing shots like a shot a minute or something crazy like that until they passed out.
Oh geez.
Yeah, it was. Or a shot of beer. Sometimes people would do that. They would
at midnight. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like at midnight.
Okay.
They would drink like a shot of beer every minute.
Oh yeah. Shit, that would.
Some people said they did some shots, but
yeah, that would mess you up.
Yeah.
But again, probably a lot of people have tolerance built up on their 21st birthday.
A lot of people they don't consider you 21 till that next day, not till after midnight now. Yeah. So people stop doing that.
Okay. Well, anyways, I guess I got in under that rule. But yeah, I don't even really remember much else. I remember going to the liquor store and buying my first 6-pack of beer and like trying some things and just wanting to try, but never letting myself fully go there because it was bad. And I knew there would be I would have to confess that. And I like didn't want to deal with that, of like the disappointment that I got drunk. But after a while, I started to figure out how to flirt with the line. And like,
of course you did.
Feeling, yeah, totally. Like, again, how you do anything. So I'd like flirt with the line. Maybe
I just
drink,
went extreme.
Totally. Maybe drink a little too much. Like I remember definitely times where I was like, I drank a little too much. I went a little too hard. Or
one of the blessings to being a poor college student, though, is that you couldn't drink a ton because you couldn't afford it. So that was part
I was
of
in
it for
a different situation. Like being in Fort Collins, like with the brewery there, we could go to the brewery and get like free beer, or like New Belgium. Or I worked in a bike shop, so beer was always, we had a beer fridge. So there was like, once I turned 21, like once we closed the doors, I would drink a beer. And it just became a very casual thing for me, like 2 beers, 3 beers, and very social. And it became something that was like, if I couldn't drink, it wasn't like, I wanted to have fun with it. I remember one time I wanted to go to a movie theater and take in rum and Coke and like a Nalgene. And I got like all this guilt of like, oh, we can't do that. And one of our friends was like more of like a fun, like, yeah, I'll drink with you. And like we snuck it in. But I remember that was like one time only situation. So anyways, this is like, but again, I was a leader. I was doing ministry.
You were super
I was
in the church.
Yeah. And people were looking up to me. And so it was this like, I've got to do it the right way because I'm up on the stage preaching. So yeah, it was weird. But so when was the first time that you felt like you were like, I should maybe think about how much I'm drinking?
Well, I think that, the next morning, the guilt, right?
That's what
well, I mean, let me explain this. So the next morning, the guilt you have, I call it an emotional hangover.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have an emotional hangover right now. For maybe what you said. I had a very loose, like I had a mouth on me when I was drunk. And so maybe sometimes I would say something that wasn't quite right, or I'd kiss this guy. I was like, oh, why did I kiss him? Or, or the worst of things when like there was some assault and lines crossed and a really scary situation. So where alcohol was involved, right? So I don't remember having a string of those thoughts. Let's put it that way. Just that next morning guilt thing, but then it would always pass. I don't think I've ever had a string of those thoughts for very long. Yeah. Honestly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an interesting relationship with it. It's like it's there, it can be used, it's fun, but I'm just not one of those people who has a big emotional tie to it that I would consider. Yeah. Like, it's there, it's not. If it's there, I'll drink it. I mean, at the party, I like had a few drinks, but I don't buy it for the house. I just don't have it in the house.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you'll buy like a bottle of wine or
but I don't like keep alcohol in the house. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Or we have like a liquor cabinet, but there's, some tequila in there and that's it. Yeah. It's the only one I like. Right. So it's an interesting relationship now where I'm not trying to get something from it. That makes sense. Yeah. I'm just enjoying a drink. Yeah. Do I enjoy the taste? Yes. Do I drink non-alcoholic beer with you because I enjoy the taste of that stuff that you get? Totally. Yes. It's about just enjoying what I'm putting in my mouth. It's not about the feeling it gives me. Yeah. Yeah. And I've observed that. I've been able to, I see the way that you handle that, which is interesting. I think, which is a great relationship to have with alcohol. Because I think that's where, again, for me, the thing that I hate is so often people feel like I'm going to judge them for having a drink or these different things, or think that not everybody can or should have a relationship. There's been times I have felt a little bit of that from you, but not while I'm drinking, if that makes sense. Well, the judgment comes from... It's more of like you saying it's poison. Exactly. I mean, it's like it's just your belief about it. Well, it's it's the truth. Like, alcohol is poison. It's okay, I do that with food with you. Exactly. So I'm like, you give me shit all the time. You're like, oh, well, that's going to do that. I'm like, well, you're drinking something that, again, in excess, it's poison. It's like alcohol. So in small amounts, it's poison. It's poison. So anyways, it inhibits neurological activity in your reticular activating system, which is actually your brain's Google and your brainstem.
Yeah.
So that's the way it works.
Yeah.
That's it lowers your inhibitions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but for me, again, yeah, I feel like a lot of people can have a great relationship with alcohol. But so it's not, being alcohol free isn't for everyone, but I think it's an interesting exercise to at least begin to explore for a period of time. I think everybody should at least look at it like an extended, 3 months, but we'll get to there as to why that is.
So, I mean, so we have our experiences in college or
Mm-hmm.
whatever else. When did you feel like the relationship shifted or took on another form?
So it shifted when I started to travel with work more.
Okay.
Because going to conferences and being on the road, there's an expectation to drink. And the filter of getting in trouble was removed because I could do it and it would be a secret. And so it was one of those things where it became part of my ability to I began to explore parts of myself. I began to party with it. I began to go out and get drunk. I began to and again, everybody was doing it, right? Our whole team, our whole thing. It was like this.
Well, didn't you guys have a keg at work at one point?
So no, totally. We had beer in the office. So every day I would have a beer at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And again, I'm very ritualistic, right? So I was very ritual with about 1 to 2, maybe 3 beers at home. Like when I was at home, it was I would always have a beer at the end of the day. So not a major, I wasn't getting drunk. It wasn't I was escaping, but it was the edge. I was learning to escape the edge, and I had a lot of edge in life. So it was that edge became more and more. But when I was on the road, it was I would party. We were out. It was my bosses, when we were in Vegas, would party all night long. It was could you be out till 5 o'clock? Because we were partying with some rollers, and we would be at these big conferences, and
I can't imagine you partying with.
So I got into
I mean, I can, but I can't. I don't know.
Yeah, rollers for me.
I
but
just know I've never even seen you drunk. So
right.
Just if you're listening, I've never even seen Jason drunk, and we've been together 2.5 years.
Yeah. So. It was we rolled, one of my favorite nights is we rolled in from we're at Top Golf, and then from Top Golf we were drinking. It was a party. Again, alcohol is just free. It's flowing. It's what you're supposed to do when you're in those environments, right?
Yeah.
And then we roll to these different places, and then we roll up on Hakkasan. That's the one that's in Caesar's Palace.
MGM. Omnia isn't Caesar's.
Omnia.
Yeah.
So we roll into Omnia, and the guy that we're with just pulls out a wad of hundreds. And just we all get it. We just get in. And we are then at a table on the floor with our own thing going on. And I freaking danced I've never danced before that night. Oh my goodness. I was up on top of a fucking
You're so tall
thing. Oh dude. And I was just dancing. And I remember looking at chicks and giving them drunk eyes. Hey, what's up? You're hot. Yeah, what's up? Oh my gosh. I went hard that night. And that was a ton of fun. I liked that. And then, but yeah, so conferences. So when I was on the road, I was drinking, and the guys I was with, they were drinking a shit ton of tequila. It was they could do a whole freaking bottle. It was insane.
Oh my goodness.
So it was an interesting cultural shift. So then there was that was at and again, I'm out of the church, all of that stuff of being a leader. It was
How old were you?
29, 30.
Okay.
When I first was going through this relationship with it. So
what did you start to notice? What was the catalyst? Yeah, you were partying a lot. You sounded like you were having fun, but when did it start to really have a different flavor? After
the divorce, and when a lot of that ended, and I wasn't on the road anymore, or after everything came out and I was going through the divorce. It wasn't after the divorce, but going through the divorce. I remember I wasn't drinking a ton. It wasn't I was getting drunk alone. I don't know that I've ever really gotten drunk alone, which is interesting. I've gotten buzzed, but I've never been plastered alone. And so, but I would again drink 3 or 4 beers pretty consistently. And I was trying to like take care of myself. I was working out. And it's hard to drink a couple beers and then wake up at 6 a.m. and work out.
Yeah.
So that started to kind of limit a little bit of what I was doing.
Okay.
But I still, I would remember like I would go to the pool with the kids and like drink a 6-pack of PBR, like while we're hanging out at the pool for like 3 or 4 hours. And I remember being like, nah, I probably shouldn't have had like a whole 6-pack. Like I didn't, but I felt this need. Like I don't want to be at the pool hanging out alone as a single father without a beer in my hand, because that would feel weird.
It was a social.
It was social and
lubricant.
It got me out of the awkwardness of feeling like I was a single dad at the pool. You know, and like not having and like that and trying to really be present with the kids, but like I didn't. Like I needed that edge.
I don't really see single dads at pool.
Exactly.
It's all moms.
Yeah.
Or couples.
Yeah. You just don't really see a lot of single dads in public often.
Yeah.
So I feel like, and so, yeah. So I remember that like kind of, it became a strategy. It became a strategy of like kind of softening the edge of not really being fully present.
So not being fully present. I mean, what were the things that you were not being fully present to?
Well, I think once I stopped drinking, you realize the grief. Like the grief or the pain or the awkwardness or all these things. Like alcohol, it serves you, and it kind of, like you said, deadens you a little bit to that situation.
Well, I think of alcohol as kind of like a unhealthy cheat code.
Yeah, I think in various ways.
It's a cheat code to numbing out your emotions instead of actually feeling and working through them or dying to them or surrendering to them. It almost is a cheat code so you don't have to surrender.
Yeah.
In order to get connected with a certain part of yourself, but then there's always a price for that. And the price is often the either guilt or the not remembering the experience or saying something. Like there's a karma that's created every time you use that cheat code to access a certain part of yourself.
Yeah, very well said.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. I was totally using that cheat code. And then I remember I got like drunk on a random Saturday, like on a date with this girl that I was dating. And I got like drank way too much. And I remember like, it was like, I didn't feel good. And it was just, I was like, wow, what is this? Like, it was probably too much. I shouldn't have. And like, but I was drinking a decent amount. Like we had partied a couple times, like at a wedding and whatever. And I just remember like, okay, what is this? So after a couple of months, the first couple of months we were dating, then, so that's kind of going on. I'm working out. I'm getting more fit. So I'm already kind of drinking less. And I am a part of this fitness group with our companies. And they put out this, like, we were doing a 5K at a conference. And they said, hey, let's do 30 days of no drinking leading up to the 5K. And I was like, all right, let's do that. Like, I've never taken a break. I've never stopped. Like, I want to be successful at this 5K. So I'm dedicated. I have a reason. Like, that's something that kind of really can motivate me. That's how I work. And so I was like, cool, let's do it. And I go the whole month doing pretty well. Like, I didn't really feel like it was something I was missing. Had my sister's wedding in Canada day 28.
Oh.
And I was flying from Canada to the conference.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, okay, am I going to cheat? Like day 20, it was maybe even like day 29 was the wedding. And I was like, and I just decided, nope, I'm not going to drink. Like, I want to go the whole way. I want to complete this thing. And I was feeling really good. And then while I was in Canada, a friend of mine recommended a book called The Naked Mind by Annie Grace. And it was about kind of looking at our relationship to alcohol. And I was like, all right, I think it's now that I'm like, I've made it on the flight down, right? On the day 30 at that point. I was like, let's now actually look at this. I hadn't read anything. I hadn't gone deep with it at all. I just did it. I gutted my way through it. But then once I was at the wedding, I realized, oh man, I can totally do this sober. Like I did that and it was fun. I had a great time and I didn't have to have a drink. Like I proved that to myself.
Yeah.
So I started reading this book and it just unlocks a bunch of stuff for me. The way she talks about alcohol and our relationship to alcohol and the marketing department, like her story was falling into alcohol with business and drinking a ton and drinking bottles of wine and just getting to that place. And so I kind of connected with her story some. Not an alcoholic, right? But just like a strategy of dealing with shit. Mm-hmm. Like you said, the cheat code. And that I'm like, all right, I want to take a deeper look at this. And so we go to the conference. And again, like everybody makes it to the race. And then it's like that night we're hosting. It may have been the next night, but either way, like I was like, am I going to drink now that I did it? And we host this massive party. Like we have over 100 people. We have a ton of alcohol. We're doing this grill off thing. It's a bunch of fun. And I'm like, I'm not going to drink tonight. Like I'm just going to stay committed to this thing. And I got through that. And I proved to myself, oh, I can go to conferences and not drink. And I can still have a ton of fun. And I felt better and I felt healthier. And at that point, I just was like, all right, I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to go a year. Like, let's go a whole year and see what this looks like. I'm going to say it's not a forever thing, but it's something that I want to see. How might I learn and grow of the year of being alcohol free? So I went from 30 days to committing to a year.
Yeah. How were those first couple months? What did you start to notice as time went on?
So at home, it became easier to not drink, to have like a kombucha or something else, because I still wanted that fizzy cold flavoring. So I found other drinks, other strategies that were I felt like not alcohol. And I began to like going out with people. It was a thing of just like learning the strategy, like just ordering a soda water with lime. And so you could still have a drink in your hand. It kind of felt like you were social, and people would ask, oh, you don't drink. And, no, and my thing was, I'm doing an experiment. I'm doing a year of being alcohol free. So I didn't have to get into it. Right. And people are like, oh, that's really cool. Right. And they're like, right on. So it kind of got me out of the needing to talk about it. But otherwise, I felt like largely it was really good.
What are some of the first lessons that would come up?
Learning to sit with the presence of the moment, and whether it was like when there was emotional things that came up, or like the cheat code. I didn't really have that anymore, so I felt like I had to sit with it, and I had to pay attention to, do I always need this? And then what are some of the addiction patterns around this? And realizing that, I totally relied on it.
What did you notice changed in your body?
Well, I mean, when I stopped drinking, I lost another 20 pounds, probably. I was somewhere around like 210, maybe 200. Yeah. And when I stopped drinking, I like dropped to like 190, 185. I was riding my bike a ton as well. So yeah, my body like shed that weight. It was like the final step of my fitness journey, and like really getting the body down to a weight that I wanted to achieve, which was like in the 190s, which is.
Have you ever wanted to drink since then?
So the first year or two, really until I met you, I just was like, I don't even want to touch it. And zero desire.
I'm such a bad influence.
And then we started dating, and I was like, she's going to do what she's going to do. I remember on the first date, again, dating.
We went to a wine bar on our first date.
Yeah. And like dating and being alcohol free was also a thing. So what do you do on dates? Like you drink, right? And so that was always like, so anyways, I just remember being like, hey, have a drink. I don't care. Like, and just this thing, like if this is going to be someone that I'm with, I have to accept the fact that they're going to drink. I don't feel a need to be with someone that's alcohol free. But also, if someone's like getting drunk all the time, like that's not going to be attractive for me. Like that's not going to work, because I know the strategy. I know what someone's doing in that situation. Yeah. So if they have an issue with alcohol, this isn't going to work. Is really where I was at. Yeah. And you haven't, and that's why it's always been a thing that's like I don't care, because I've never seen you have an issue with it, or something that I felt like I saw in myself. And even if you did, I would, again, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but
even if I did what?
I mean, I would love you. So like that would be your shit to figure out. I might call it out. I might be like, hey, you might want to look at this, but I would trust that if you were using it as a tool to not be engaged in your emotions or as a cheat code, that would affect our relationship.
I've totally used it as a tool for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, but it never stuck. Also, one of the, I can't stick to anything. So
it's true.
even the bad things.
Right. Yeah.
I wouldn't really be good at a like true addiction.
Right.
Or not true addiction. That's not the right word, but a deep addiction and really bad. Because I get bored with something.
You need variety.
I need variety. Why would I get addicted to something?
Your addiction is variety. Oh gosh. It's so true.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Do you feel like you've seen different sides of me when I've been drinking? What have you noticed?
I mean, there's been a handful of times where you've been like, I'm gonna drink tonight, right? Like when we've been in Vegas a couple of times, there's been some times where, and I notice like there's a little bit of that, you know, again, when you get drunk, certain things that just kind of get turned up a little bit, like the irritability, your truth telling, like you're kind of like a little bit more sharp. So I have seen that a little bit.
More sassy.
Kind of, yeah, you get sassy. And again, my thin skin, I'm like, fucking chill out. Like, and you get a little sassy with me, and that like triggers me. Like I like my calm and, you know, even keel, even though I like you sassy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just see the sass come out a little bit more, I would say.
The 8 side of me.
Yeah.
Pushing, challenging.
Yeah. The challenger totally comes out more.
Yeah. Totally. So. Yeah, actually that's a good question. It's so interesting. I see these days people talking about alcohol or going alcohol free, right? Or going sober, whatever you want to call it. But then also actually going sober, right? And seeing some really close people in my life really going sober and how that's been such a positive thing for them. So, but I feel that having a conversation about alcohol should also be available to those who don't, like, you can still talk about the energy of alcohol without quote unquote struggling and whatever, I don't know, whatever threshold you want to give it to call it a struggle. But I think that it's still something energetically, it's an interesting thing to talk about. But it's just interesting that why can't people who don't have a problem with it still be able to talk about it?
Yeah, it's interesting. You don't really hear that very often, like people just having a casual conversation about either it's about what you love about it, like, oh, what kind of drinks do you like? Like that's how you talk about alcohol.
It's very polarizing.
Yeah, it's either all in or nothing. It's never like, what's your relationship with alcohol like?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like people are going to be like,
Well, it's such a personal thing too, talking with people. I often talk to people about their relationship with food, but then also alcohol. I have patients who I have literally said, I mean, they're drinking multiple times every night, multiple beers or multiple glasses of wine or a whole bottle of wine. And I'll tell somebody, you need to stop that. And they think that I've just told them to kill their puppy. Yeah. It is like and even with food, when we see a food allergy test and, oh, this creates inflammation in your body, and they're like, but I love this. I had a woman, she was super allergic to shrimp, and she has shrimp cocktail every day for lunch.
Oh my gosh.
She's a ritual person, just like you. And it was really allergic. And she said her eye itching went away within like a couple weeks of stopping eating it.
Wow.
So, but food and of course alcohol is so, because of also the the neurotransmitters that it activates in the brain and the gut. Your gut and your brain are connected, by the way. 60% of your dopamine and 80% of your serotonin's made in the brain, or made in the gut for the brain. So the way that alcohol will activate those kind of things as well.
It's so interesting. So I feel like so these are like our stories, right? Well, what our experiences have been. What's your perspective about alcohol on society on a whole, right? I mean, the article we started off with talking about this, like, do you feel like it should be something that's limited, that should be talked about more? Do you think more people need to be looking at their relationship with alcohol and drinking less? Like, what's your perspective? I'm curious.
Alcohol is very powerful. It's a very powerful substance if you look at it scientifically, right? So think about you can distill medicine, you can tincture out and work with medicine from plants using alcohol. We wouldn't have medicines that we have without the fermentation process, right? And the fermentation process is a natural process in life, in nature, right? And that's also what was also used to protect humans from certain bacteria in their food or in their drink. Was the fermentation process. It was safer often to, drink alcohol. So I think that there is some great value to the actual substance of alcohol, right? But it's not what, it's how. Right? Often in life, it's not the what necessarily, it's the how. And similar to the way that we have emotional connection, I mean, food, of course, we have to have food to survive. Food is very similar too, but food can kill you too. And alcohol can kill you. So it really is about the how. And I think that there is a lot of, I see and have seen a lot of, even though alcohol is one of those things that does change or alter your state, especially neurologically, I've seen there's so much shame around it. And I would love to also see almost an evening of the playing field with all substances that are cheat codes for you. Yeah. What's your strategy? What's your cheat code? Right? Not to downplay, alcohol and what it's done and how it's destroyed people's lives. I think it's just the ease of access and how quickly it works too. Yeah. There's that. But people kill themselves with food. People kill themselves with lots of things.
So the how, if people are thinking about, how do you begin to think through that process of how you think about alcohol or how you think about your relationship to alcohol? Where do you start?
Well, I'll say that, but I also want to hear where you would start as well, other than you stayed away from it and you just never, you even will try my wine or my beer and you don't,
I've lost the taste for it.
You don't even like it.
Yeah, I've totally lost the taste for it.
Even if you wanted to drink, I don't think you would.
Right. And I think that's the thing that's funny to me. That's why I always joke like it's poison. I'm like, you literally have trained yourself to like something
similar to coffee.
It can be totally. and it's like anything
train ourselves to like coffee.
We create a palate for something. And when you taste it, like I've had some nice red wines and things that are like really, I remember loving, or hazy IPAs. Those are my jam. Yeah. I knew that stuff. I was such a beer nerd. Again, how you do anything is how you do everything. So I knew the best beers. I was drinking some of the nicest stuff that's out there. We had a beer mule from like PA that would come in with a Northeast style, like hazy IPAs before they were a thing. Yeah. And we were drinking stuff that was just like, blow your mind.
So, I mean, how, to shift that relationship with alcohol, I always wanted it to be a natural thing. So this was my strategy. I'm not saying anybody else should take this on, but I knew that by saying I can't have something will want me to have it more. This is how I am. Right. Right. Or that shame around something. I wasn't willing to play that game. I wasn't willing to play the shame game. I wasn't willing to play, oh, this would be healthier for me. I just wasn't. I do that enough of my life with a lot of other things. I just wasn't willing. I wanted the desire to just go away. And the more that I have worked with my emotions, sit with my emotions, express my emotions, express myself, the more I'm in my body, the more work that I do with around trauma, the more I just don't find myself desiring it.
Yeah.
But I'm also not afraid to tell you that I do.
Right.
So like the other day, I really wanted a beer.
Yeah.
I was like, man, it was the second day of my period. I'm like, I don't know if it was a period craving or something like that. I just would love a beer right now. And I don't judge myself for bringing home and having a couple glasses of wine if I ever wanted that. I don't judge myself for it. And so, because I also don't judge myself, there's the opposite happens for me.
Yeah.
Because I don't beat myself up about it. I find that it loses its charge. It's lost its charge to me a lot.
Yeah, and just by naturally, like you said,
one thing that helps with that is cannabis, but let's be honest.
Right, that's like the discovery of that, because I didn't
so much healthier for you.
So much. I didn't discover that until I was like 35. Right. So I
remember when we were first chatting, I was making fun of you I'm like, what are you going to do this weekend? And you gave me this emoji of like something blowing.
Smoke.
I was like, what does that mean? What are you talking about? You were talking about how you're going to smoke a joint or something over the weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like,
man, this guy's a stoner.
My treat to myself was doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah. And that's now like far more, still, that's why I feel like it's important that I'm not saying I'm sober, right? And that not playing that game, that's just being alcohol free, because cannabis has been a beautiful gift in many ways. And something that has, at times served, but also at times you have to look at your relationship to it as well.
Exactly.
And check in.
We recently decided not to do it during the week.
Yeah. And to not have the vape pen around because of the ease of that, right?
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting because our parents drink in front of us.
Right.
Lots of parents drink it. I drink in front of my child.
Right.
But I'm not willing to have a vape pen around or smoke weed in front of my child.
Yeah.
It's really interesting how alcohol's totally acceptable.
Right.
And social, and cannabis is not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Like not even, we don't even want our house to smell like it. I mean, there's still so much stigma around something. Yeah.
Well, and I think, and again, we're probably unique on that because I'm sure lots of kids grew up smelling marijuana around the house and like.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, totally. Yes. I've had many friends that have told me like if their parents smoked, they'd smell it. So I think that's just, but again, societally, I would agree. I think it's not nearly as acceptable in front. But I think it'll be interesting to see how that shifts and changes because we're still in Colorado Springs where the laws, you can't buy it in the city. And I don't know, it'll be interesting to see if it all changes. So at the end of the day, for me, I feel like where you would start, right? Because that's kind of where we were at. And you were talking about looking at the how. For me, very similar, but my angle on it is the why. Why are you drinking? And going to that place of thinking like where, and again, this is Annie Grace's perspective, so her line, but the idea that you have a marketing department in your brain, which is basically trying to like convince you that this is going to serve you, right? You could call it the ego. There's lots of ways we can look at this, but I think tapping into that, and beginning to think, what is the story around my use of alcohol? And what patterns do I see in that story? And beginning to just check in, and where you start to feel like it becomes I always feel like I need this because of X, Y, and Z. That's worthy to look at. And it's worthy to spend some time paying attention to that And if it is the removal of alcohol, okay. If it's something else, I don't know. There's lots of ways you might look at it, but it's worthy to look at because that really, you are delaying your healing. You're delaying the work. You're delaying your ability to continue to level up if you're unwilling to take a look at that. And so that would be my encouragement to people is where you see that, like, just pay attention. It'll serve you. It'll be hard, but I guarantee, like, you can always go back to it, but it'll serve you for a season. It'll serve you well.
What about a partner that refuses to look at their connection to alcohol? Like, what if?
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you can set the standard. You can set the bar in your own experience. And you can't ever change your partner. And so the only thing you can do is change you and own your shit and own your part in it. And that would be my encouragement. Just own your shit. So whether that means you're committing to being like, I'm not going to buy it anymore. And I'm not going to buy it for you. Like, I'm just not going to buy alcohol anymore. If this is something that you want, it's something that you're going to need to resource yourself. Set a bar there for yourself if you are in that. But just own your stuff. And that's all you can do. And from that, your partner might begin to pick up on that frequency and see that change and start to awaken themselves. But again, they have to do their own work at the end of the day.
That'd be such a hard thing. I couldn't imagine that. Not being on the same page.
That's unconditional love.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's saying, like, I will love you unconditionally, even though there's this thing in you that I can't reconcile or I can't agree with or I can't. And again, I'm so grateful that we don't have that. But man, I've heard stories of couples, Rich and Julie, like Rich Roll, my dude, right? His wife, when he was super unhealthy, and because he was an alcoholic, and then he basically got sober and changed his drinking for food and got real unhealthy and put on a bunch of weight. And at 38, that's when he had his wake up. But he and Julie were together for 3 or 4 years, like in that time. And she was like fully plant-based, hippie, clean eating, all of that. And he's like eating Jack in the Box at midnight coming home from being a lawyer, like just from the office. Very different levels.
Such an interesting couple.
And
such an interesting couple.
Their story, like her unconditional love of him, taught me so much about a partner and loving a partner through anything. And that's what you're being asked to, is to love your partner unconditionally. And that's what we step into when we step into that love is, yeah, there's going to be certain things that annoy me or work that I need to do that annoys you, but we love each other through it. But I am grateful that we have found each other on the, and again, you will, like, because I believe that's the frequency of change. You changed me. Like when we came in, our political understandings and our perspectives of the world.
You were eating meat.
And I wasn't eating meat. I was on a different level.
Yeah.
And you have influenced me to do work around those things, and it's changed me.
I've not convinced you.
No,
it's probably been the most, it was such an interesting, it's been such an interesting journey and a constant thing for me, because you'll even bring it up. I'll bring up something and say, hey, we need to do that. Can you buy organic this? Because these actually have a ton of pesticides. And then you'll tell me, babe, I've been buying this for like the last year. And you tell me now.
You tell me this now.
You tell me this now. And I keep reminding you, I really let go of trying to convince you of anything. Mm-hmm. There's certain things where I can draw a line and.
Yeah, but like you mentioned grapes. The grapes, that non-organic grapes are like one of those things. And I love grapes. Honestly, they're like one of my favorite fruits. I just freaking love them. Yeah. And so I was like, really? I can't buy those anymore. And then I said, okay, I won't. Like you've asked, like I won't buy those anymore. And then lo and behold.
The ones the other day were so big. I'm like, what are these?
Yeah.
You even said they're organic.
I was like, they said organic on the thing. I don't know if it's the right organic, but like it said organic. So I'm buying them because I freaking love green grapes in season.
Although one of my biggest things I've won on recently is tap water. And I'm so
you got
happy.
Me on that one.
Oh, gosh.
But I had to do my own, I had to kind of go through my own process. And then you initiated.
It's not about doing your own research. It's deciding that you actually want to listen to me. Sometimes I do get really frustrated when I do share these things with you and you still challenge me on this.
I know, it's interesting. It's on my process. Like I'm so committed to my way.
So it's another work on my part to not get so offended when you just don't agree with and part of it, why are you just telling me this now? Part of you thinks that I don't really believe in it, or I'm just bringing it up because I heard something on TikTok.
Sometimes. But because again, sometimes you like, again, for me, for it to be important, it's something I'm going to be consistent in. I have a conviction around. So like drinking, right? It's been interesting, but there's these certain things that you hold convictions around, but you're not consistent on. And that always throws me for a loop. Because if it's really something, it's for me to grow to a conviction around it. I'm like, all right, great. I'm going to do this then every single day. Like if this is what you're telling me and this is what I need to do, then it needs to be done every day. And like supplements, for example, like I know like we've started taking more supplements and it's been interesting because I'm just like,
more
all right,
consistently,
I'm going to let her give them to me and I will take them whenever she gives them to me. I'm not going to try to
look the same.
And it never looks the same. I never know what I'm taking. And it's
I could be poisoning you and you have no idea.
And I'm like going through this process because again, I'm like, when you first got me on supplements, it was like, take 2 of this, take 2 of this, take 2 of this, and do 3 of these. And I did it every day until all of those bottles were gone. Because that's how I do it. Like, that's what you told me, and that's what I did. And with this, I'm like, you know what? This is fun for you. You like figuring it all out and adding variety. And so I'll just like, whatever, I'll take it.
It's really the chaga and reishi. I'll throw in a couple here and there. Like once in a while.
I'd figure, like, you're not going to kill me.
Things that are more adaptogenic that you don't necessarily have to take every day.
And these are things I don't understand. So that's why I love being able to release it to you and be like, all right, just do it. Like, whatever. So it's fun. It's fun to get to realize that like we're not always going to agree on everything in our relationship. We'll always have varying perspectives. And yet we find ourselves continually like learning how to see it from the other person's perspective. And that's what I feel like has been such a beautiful part about our relationship. Like I began to see meat a different way. I began to open up on that in some ways that I hadn't.
And I didn't shame you into that, or I didn't convince you that, well, I mean, I did show you your blood work where I'm like, well.
Yeah, you gave me some facts that I needed to work with. But then
you got some issues.
Yeah. And so, but then even like with drinking, I've given myself permission to taste it and be like, you know what, if I like something, I think I'm at a place where I could drink that and that might be okay. So it's interesting to say that like when we were in Mexico, we were on the beach, I had been in the water, and man, I had this craving for just the flavor of alcohol. Like I just wanted a cold cervezas so bad. And cerveza. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give myself permission and I'm going to just enjoy this. And I think 2 of the nights that we were down there, I drank. And one day I had like 3 or 4 beers one of the days. I didn't feel buzzed at all.
That's like, the weird thing.
No buzz.
Yeah.
And again, because the energy wasn't about the buzz. Yeah. There was no desire to get drunk. It just tasted, in that saltiness, it just tasted great. And it was a great experience. And there was no shame. And then I haven't had any desire to drink it again. And so I feel like I truly feel alcohol free. Like I am free from alcohol. Could I taste it and decide if I wanted to? Sure. And again, would I have to look at it again? Because could I be entrapped once again? Absolutely. But I have a freedom now with my relationship with alcohol that I'm deeply grateful for. And I think that's really what it's about, being alcohol free.
Yeah.
Is like I am free from that thing. I can say yes and I can say no. And that's freedom. And that's something that I think
sovereignty.
It is, because this or that is not freedom. That's a duality. And I think it's really important that to say that you're really free from something is actually to say that I have the full control to say yes or no to this thing. I am free from it. I am in control. Freedom is non-dualistic. And so that's how I feel about my relationship with alcohol today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank God for good, yummy alcohol-free beers.
Oh yeah, I wish I had one. I could do a product placement. I think it's called Well-Being.
Oh, so good.
It's a hazy.
Maybe they'll be our first.
They could be our first sponsor.
Our first sponsor. Yes. I'd totally be sponsored.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. So we get it at Whole Foods.
Yeah.
It comes in this tall silver can. It's got like cool artwork. It's a hazy IPA. I think it's Well-Being is the best thing that's out there. There's a lot of, again, being alcohol free is a growing thing. It's more and more coming into the common place. Like now, Whole Foods always has at least 4 to 6 different alcohol free beers. That's beyond like Heineken and the weird shit.
Yeah.
Like craft, alcohol free stuff.
Yeah, it can actually be cool now.
Yeah. And so it's interesting to see how it's kind of coming back. And then all the hop teas and the hop waters. And so I definitely found ways to find those flavors and really begin to enjoy them. Kombucha is another really great one. So for anybody that's out there that's listened to these experiences, our stories, our perspectives, and are feeling some sort of call to this, like there's so much that you can be explored. And I would say first, Annie Grace and The Naked Mind is a great book and a beautiful resource to begin with. There's, great tools that are out there that can kind of help you go through the process and then giving yourself a plan and saying, okay, great. Instead of this, I'm going to bring this. So anytime I go to a party, I always make sure I have something that I want to drink and I bring it. So that way I don't feel like I'm missing out. I always because again, it's part of the fun, but I get to enjoy it and enjoy a good drink, but not be getting drunk.
Mm-hmm. I've also really liked that about a lot of our friends, where when they come over, it's not about drinking.
Yeah. It's interesting to shift with people is and if you want to bring it, great. I'm not going to, but yeah, we don't have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or I have a little bit, but not very many mixers.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I think that the relationship with alcohol is so complex and people's different experiences, relationships, and there's such a wide spectrum of all of this. I really love that we can share our unique perspective, and that's what I feel is what's needed to be talked about, is just our unique perspectives.
Yeah.
And somebody who may be listening maybe feels like they're not alone, and us exploring some of these less extreme versions, but still important to us and unique to us and things that we can speak to with conviction is the magic of podcasting and having a conversation about something, telling a story, and learning. We've learned something in the process, but also we never know who's going to be listening on the other end who may learn 1 or 2 things or lots of things or nothing or may hate it, and that's okay too. And I love that about these conversations.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your story and your experiences.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you.
I
wonder when I'll see you drunk one day. Maybe never.
I mean, I have freedom to decide to let you see that or not. I think the thing is, I don't want to
feel FOMO for missing out on a part of you.
Yeah.
Even though it's a part I might not really like.
Exactly. It's interesting. The thing, like right now, if I know, I would be far more inclined to be like, all right, let's get drunk one night if I didn't have to deal with a hangover the next day. I'm like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
It's really, I have not had a hangover.
Well, I mean, that's when you do just tequila. You won't have much of a hangover with just tequila.
It's still like I could, I puking. I hate all that stuff. Anyways, that's what keeps me from it.
Oh, really?
Well, and I don't want to get drunk. I have zero desire. If I wanted to, I'm sure I'd be able to figure out a way to do it.
Yeah. Well, good convo, babe.
Yeah. Love you.
Love you. I gotta pee.